and I gave my presentation saying that this program that I just evaluated in Burkina Faso was perhaps the best, most exciting development effort I'd ever seen. Sat down smugly and just said, well, I'm going to be bored out of my mind for the rest of this conference. But then Marcia Odell stands up and she says, well, we've been operational about 6 months and we're working through 6,500 groups with 130,000 women. And I said to myself, and my mouth dropped open, because typically a microfinance program starting up might reach a few thousand, maybe years later up to 5 or 10, 20, but this number was absolutely unprecedented. So this led me to understand that this whole approach, which is called savings-led microfinance, which instead of having a large institution like a bank-like institution delivering credit to, to people. Okay, I'm in a short leash here. Let me.
You talk, I'll get it.
Okay. That there was another approach, which is based on a simple idea of women mobilizing their own savings and making loans to each other at interest. So this is the essence of the methodology. I'll go into more into details of this, but this is one of those key transformational periods of my life. I'd also like to make reference to Francis's democracy. So what is it? Not the thin, the living democracy. I wasn't going to say the fat democracy. I mean, the thin and the fat, but the living democracy. And all of this presentation is about the nuts and bolts of a very, very practical, extremely simple approach for creating living democracy within these communities. And so we'll focus on that issue. So this, just to give you an idea, all these are photos that I've taken in Mali. We're working in several places, but I'm focusing on this. And just to give you an idea, this is what a Malian village would look like. Villagers, about a third of these people, will be sick with malaria within the next few months. About half have had enough to eat during the year. And these children with the yellowish hair are suffering from a severe vitamin deficiency. Okay, so this is the challenge of networking. Now I know I put this slide together early this morning, recognizing that many here are great internet pioneers, dealing with the internet of all sorts of the Wikipedia business. But what is a real life situation we're dealing with in Mali? Well, we have an illiteracy rate of 90%, no electricity. The women traditionally, and we're working with women, have very little mobility. They can maybe go to the market, but with the cultural constraints, they can hardly leave the villages. They have virtually no rights. Husbands command everything. Crushing hard work that they do, carrying water, firewood, little food for much of the year, and very little contact with the outside world. So this is the reality of the networking situation. And I'll show you within that context how well networking can work. And these little photos here, this is actually, you'll see what this means later on, but these are some kids preparing themselves to be grown-up dancers. We'll see. Okay, so I have a very simple means of creating living democracy, and I developed this model when I was doing work fomenting revolution in the Andes back in the 60s. And the basic concept is extremely simple, and it boils down to just a couple of key concepts. If you, through your own efforts, can increase your livelihood and your ability to make a little bit more income to move ahead, and if that process is supported by a group of peers who are encouraging you to make those changes, and through the discipline of regular meetings and discipline action and leadership, which reflects exactly these principles of living democracy, of seeing the best in people, encouraging them along to move ahead in their lives, you're going to get transformative social change. And I've seen this operate in the United States with Working Capital, my microfinance program here, in rural Maine or inner city Boston, or in Mali, across all religions, cultures, economic levels. This always works. You can get ahead. It's not seeing the world as a fixed pie, but through your own efforts, you can increase the size of the pie. You're encouraged to do that. Discipline, communal action to do that will lead almost automatically to transformative social change and under all settings. So, the mechanism, and I'd like to talk about, we talk a lot about micro business development, but let's talk about nano business development. Here are 3 businesses represented in this slide. This woman is in a mango business, another one in the prepared food business, and the other in the firewood business, coming to the market from the hills and selling. This is by far the most common economic activity on the face of the earth, not the sweatshops as you're making reference to. This is how people live. These are the businesses that provide goods and services for virtually all the population in the developing world and a source of income. Now it's possible to increase the profitability and the scale of these through something called microfinance, microenterprise assistance. And this has been a huge success story. When I started working in this field back in 1980, doing some of the first worldwide studies of microfinance, or microenterprise development as it was called back in those days, we could find a couple of programs here or there that reach as many as 2,000. A couple in India, the Working Women's Forum, and SEWA. Now, 85 million are being reached through this program. But that's the good news. The bad news is that almost all of these are concentrated in a handful of countries, India, Bangladesh, and Indonesia, where there's huge population concentrations, sophisticated institutions. But there's 500 million households that are not being reached. And the penetration of all the despite decades of effort, is only a couple of percent, 5%, 3%, 10%. And because these are areas with dispersed population and people are extremely poor, there's no way that traditional microfinance could reach this population in any kind of appreciable scale. So our invention, our effort for reinventing this, is to create a system by which these possibilities for transformative social change can be translated to those that can never be reached through credit unions and microfinance institutions and banks. Just to clarify the traditional model, you have a large institution that gives out loans to a borrower. The loans are paid back with interest. This covers the operating costs of the institution. And a lot of interesting things happen here in the middle, particularly with Grameen and many others, tremendous amount of empowerment. But the suggestion is that this structure is not going to work into the poor rural areas of Mali where we operate. Not that, now these diagrams are from one of our programs in Cambodia. And shows that a microfinance institution is not always an unmixed blessing. So you see here, people are crying, husbands and wives are fighting, the houses are terrible, kids aren't going to school, there's gangs, poverty, a general mess, and the microfinance institutions coming in delivering credit. What is it like 5 years later? People are happy, people are in school, and the external loan agent is leaving, and they're managing their own loan fund. Just imagine in China, where all the money from the rural areas is siphoned out to this wonderful postal savings system. Billions and billions and billions of dollars are siphoning out of the... But wonder if there was a whole series of little check dams in every village where the money generated in that particular community was kept there and focused on local development efforts. What about if all these remittances payments going from Juan to Juana out there in El Salvador, or Honduras, or Mexico, or sea lo que sea, wherever you happen to be, was going in, being administered parts through this group with no institution in between, and promoting the economic development in these areas. So much more money is coming through remittances, and so much more money could be mobilized within each community, because even in the poorest communities, given the cash flow in a rural village, where there's a lot of money right after the harvest and poverty thereafter, people have learned techniques of savings, and we're building on these existing traditions of savings and mobilizing the capital locally so that the money that might be kept under the mattress or put into animals or jewelry or are simply lost is pooled together in a common fund. This common fund is, out of this fund, it's not just money just sitting there, it's lent out for all sorts of economic enterprises. Now, I was in El Salvador last week. I talked to 20 women in a group in a remote village in El Salvador. Every single woman was engaged in some kind of economic activity, and every single woman I spoke to had a concrete plan of how she could use $50 to move her business ahead. So loans are given out. Everybody saves, put their money in as small or as much as they, it could be 20 cents a month, 5 cents a week, 50 cents a week, whatever they can, pool the money together, pay it back, the loan fund keeps growing, more loans go out, and then this is the real beauty of the system. Now, the real beauty of the system is that it's salted. It's started by some animators, some staff people who are getting this idea out into a bunch of communities. But the real genius of this is the expectation that, this is why I call it the amoeba model of development. Now, you can imagine going back to your high school biology class, the amoeba, doesn't this look like the pseudopod going off and then there's a transfer of genetic material, a brand new amoeba is created. Here is how it's going. In 12 months, 13 months actually in Mali, there's 1,003 groups been trained by a team of about 20 facilitated. But the fascinating part of the story, that even in its first year, 400 of the 1,000 groups were trained by other villagers. And I'll show you photos of exactly how this happens and what it implies. Now, these are conceptual underpinnings. Well, using the Easterly metaphor, the idea of seekers, not planners. So this is sort of the anti-Jeffrey Sachs end of poverty approach, because we're doing extremely simple, highly concrete, very well evaluated, constantly learning situations of dealing with a concrete, high value, easy understandable process. We're looking for local solutions. We're not bringing in brilliant ideas from the outside, which are always stupid ideas, but building on but through an understanding of what is already in place. Already people are saving and lending through traditional mechanisms. We sought to understand that, ask them what would be better, and then help facilitate that. So you build on local solutions. No wonder 400 of the 1,000 groups are created in the first year, and no wonder we expect that percentage will go from 40 to 70 to 90% in the years to come, is that it's built on local solutions that everybody already understands. We leverage everything. What's already in place? Don't come in from the outside. What's there? Traditions of savings and lending. They're non-government organizations. Not for profits, but non-government. Still not a great name, but what was it? Social. So what?
Social benefit.
Social benefit organizations. Social benefit organizations. Thank you. Social benefit organizations that are out there already in place. They have networks throughout there. They're doing literacy and other things. So you build on that. If, let's say, that group at some point or another needs an outside source of credit, you don't have to create a brand new institution of finance, a bank. You can use the ones that are already there and use these already existing groups to tap into those resources. Scale is essential. Now, as the founder of BRAC once says, small is beautiful, but big is necessary. Hundreds of millions, even in a country the size of Mali, there's at least, with 30 years of microfinance work, there's 1 million families, households that have not reached these services. Even in the so-called, quote, saturated market of Bolivia, where there's Prodem, Banco Sol, and all these other organizations, there's 1 million households completely left outside, which will never be reached. Self-replication, this is the idea. Salt the idea, get it started, let it grow. We're much more interested in the ripples. Sequencing, get your inputs in order. You start with starting a simple savings and lending group. That creates the social capital, the economic muscle, the savings capacity, the finance capacity to start doing other things. You can buy insecticide impregnated bed nets That was the first thing. We have now associations of these groups drilling wells, doing this on their own resources, which they can pull together themselves. Everything is low cost. We're driving every month. How much should it cost per family, per household? Not the $1,500 per person of the Millennium Villages, but maybe in the vicinity of $10, or maybe for full-time $20 per household, not per individual. That's the only way you can get out to huge numbers. Village control. If this is dependent on outsiders keeping the thing propped up, it's going to fail. As soon as you leave, it'll fall like a house of cards. Village control, village running. Pebble in the pond. What's your role as the outsider? Salt the idea. Bring the idea. Get it out. And so we have our animators that are selected. They said, okay, these are your 30 villages. Go around there. See who's interested. Pick out the winner villages. Start it here. And then stand back and let things happen. The backwards dance. I think this is a crucial criteria. The backwards dance. Animators, the first time they go in, they start the group. And then people start replicating. Then you talk to the replicators. And then you find... Then you tie the groups together into associations. And the associations take on a larger role. Then you find the NGOs that were doing the work that you initially trained can now train the other NGOs. So you keep backing up, backing yourself out of the job, keeping just enough control to keep the whole thing running smoothly, and go ahead. And you're focusing on people, not institutions. So the idea that the villagers are solving their problems. The institutions, our partner organizations, they're fine, but that's not our purpose to create permanent institutions. We'd like them to be able to get out of the job as quickly as possible and do absolutely everything to do. And based on the web model, we only finance in a particular region, a cluster of 300 villages, where 10 and then 15 animators work for 3 years. 3 years, it's got to be a self-sustaining, self-replicating process. All we do is monitor after that. Try to figure out what's going on. So our roles, we keep these animators. Here's one in place. We basically, my major job, they're very accountable to their action because there's requirements for quantity and the quality of the group. But then the whole process is questioning everything. What would a good program look like? What would a good group look like? What are you trying to do? And I'll get to that. You learn, you change, you share your knowledge. If Francis is a top-notch animator, she becomes a trainer of the next group of animators, or the good animator goes here, or the village that has an idea is brought here. So you become less a trainer than a checker player. Take these people with ideas, move them to these people, move where the points of lights are. So you're doing that networking constantly in a context in which there's no literacy or anything else. So here, this is from this is Al Gore here, as you see. I just fit this picture. But so we got to engage the staff in learning, not to do things by rote. Okay, I checked off. I visited the village. Okay, I visited. Okay, what did you do? What do you want to accomplish? What does best look like? This is appreciative inquiry. What is best? Okay, let's see if I can get myself out of here. Okay, what does best look like? Yeah, oh, these are 25 characteristics of a really great program. Hey, how do we rate? Gee, we're only 2 on the secretaries taking responsibility of doing the record keeping. We're only 4 on people showing up to the meetings, so on and so forth. Get your matrix. How do we rate? Okay. Now, the 2 of you work out a plan for getting from 2 to 5. The 2 of you take the next problem. The 2 of you take the next problem, and then they, not you. All you do is the catalyst, because you don't have any ideas, because they live that reality every day. And then you say, oh, so you're going to Francis. So you're going to improve the record keeping. So when you get on your motorcycle tomorrow, what are you going to do differently when you go to the next village, and how are you going to get that goal together? Okay, oh yeah, well, you're going to talk to the secretary an extra hour after the meeting and go over the record. Oh, great. What's your plan? What's your plan? What's your plan for everything? And then you say, all right, let's meet next month. Well, what did you do? What did you learn? And that's the kind of process that you need to create the level of efficiency and reflectiveness and understanding of process that this constant dialogue. You never do anything you wrote. Every experience is a learning experience, and so you build that in. So our results, you can see the results, and with our new partners in place, we should be up to 50, 60,000 within 12 months. So, these stats. Well, 1,000 groups, 20,000 members, 400 groups by villagers. Almost all of this is done by 20 on the motorcycles. Late payment is virtually zero because this is their money. It's not. This is warm money, our money, all of our money. You're a typical size group. This is our money. If Tom doesn't pay back, of course, only women here, but if Tom doesn't pay back, we're all suffering. So we hold each other accountable. And loans are small. We'll only give Tom a $5 loan to buy because we know he can't handle a $20 loan, etc. Then the groups say, this is great stuff. We've been saving here at interest. We were saving out, we were lending out at 10% a month. But now we're at the end of the year. We need to buy our peanut seeds. And look, we've made a 50% return on our savings. We saved $10 each, and now we have $15. And then once they get that idea across, now 75% of the groups have increased their savings rate. And then we're going to build up the program from there.
400 groups that are, what do you mean groups by villagers?
Well, those groups have been created by other villagers. So if you, Tom, you were in a group, and somebody came to you and they said, God, you have a great group there, then you would train the other groups. So those are groups that are trained at zero costs.
This is like an infection rate then.
Yeah, a viral expansion. Yeah, a good kind of infection for a change. Martha.
Who started the 600 that weren't started by?
Those are the animators. Those are the staff. I'll show you a picture of the animators. These are people that we put into place that, well, they work for NGOs, but we trained them, funded them through Oxfam to start this process. It's sort of like salting the process, get it rolling. We have to have something in place to make it go. So those are those people. But after that, then this is all these other groups, which will start with, let's say 40% the first year are created by other villagers who are members of groups, and then it goes to 70 and 90%, and then we fade out altogether. So just enough to get it rolling, get the pebble in the pond, get those waves going, and get out of the way. You can see that philosophically it's quite a different approach.
Jeff, what motivates one community that's working on their own problems to go to the other community, or do you use the NGO's funding?
No, not at all. There's no funding at all. It's just the joy of learning. People are thrilled to be in this program. They perceive their lives getting so much better. They're cooperating. They have status in the village. They have their savings. They're starting businesses. 50% of them in the first few months have started a new business. They perceive their income is going up. They're excited. They're excited and thrilled to be in a situation where their lives are demonstrably better than they were. And others are observing them, and they say, now here's in a village and a couple hundred women. These are the ones that first went in. They were risk takers. And the others are kind of looking around, well, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. Then they see it really working and say, okay. Yeah, you teach us.
In their culture, they cooperate like that.
Yeah.
And other things, I guess.
Well, but I see this happening all the time. We find that in rural Maine, the major, when we do similar groups, they were spreading the word. But I'll show you how this works a little more. It's an exciting process. It gives you a certain amount of status, and I'll also show you in just a little bit how people are making a business out of this as well. Okay, so here we are, a typical group. Here we are in the high-level financial transactions that are underway. So groups save and lend to each other, no initial link to the credit source, we're seeding the programs, and the village agents, the leaders, get this program out to the others. So the advantages: provides a safe place to save instead of your husband taking the money, or kids, or losing it, or stuffing it under the mattress, or you using it yourself. You're forced to say, whatever I do, I've got to bring my 25 cents to the group this week, or my 50 cents, or my 5 cents, or whatever it happens to be. Easy access to loans. People say, well, before we didn't have loans, and look what we had to do. We ran out of money. We need to plant our peanuts. So I got $10 from the moneylender, and I bought peanut seeds. And then guess what? 3 months later, I had to pay back the moneylender $30 worth of peanuts. $10, $30, $20 difference. I get a loan from my group. It cost me $3 in interest. I'm $17 ahead. Now whole villages have liberated themselves from the moneylender using this. This is just a very concrete example. Interest grows the group fund, as I said, up to a 40, 50, 60% return on investment, depending on the group. And the key to that is that all of you, since all of you are in business, are constantly making that money churn around. Just like any financial institution, the faster the money churns around, the more the money that's out, the more interest you make. This, of course, becomes a forum for sharing and support. It's not hardly financial. In fact, as I'll show you later, these rate lower than the others. We have transactions are simple. And how do we do with a system where illiteracy is almost 90%? Well, we've invented an oral record-keeping system based on recall so that people, all of you, will just have to remember. For example, if I take out a loan, then Francis has to remember, is my remember, she has to remember that I took out a $20 loan for 2 months to buy a goat. She's accountable. Everybody has a remember, everybody has a helper to remember. So this system works. Well, everybody is, of course, since everybody's illiterate, their brains haven't been destroyed by too much education, and they can actually remember things. Yeah, Dick.
How's the interest rate set?
But they set it themselves. We do it with Pebbles. Everything they set themselves. They do their rules themselves. They set their interest rates. And what we do is provide little exercises called learning conversations. Just a few lines that would say, for example, for setting the interest rate, you say, one group decided to charge a 10% a month interest rate, or they wouldn't, of course, call it percent, but they would, for every 100 CFAs, there would be 10 CFAs. And at the end of the year, and you could show with seeds and pebbles, they'd have this much money. And the other did a much lower rate and did this much money. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? What do you choose? The whole, every exercise, the whole manual, I have a copy of the manual here, but you can see that each little piece, each decision has a little conversation around it, which they reflect themselves on the advantage and disadvantage of different approaches and make the decision, an informed decision on what they can do. Transactions are simple. This becomes a platform. Here's our financial institution. If you want to see what a financial institution, this is the smaller version of Bank of America. This is the entire thing right there. Close the box, lock the box, count the money, lock the box. Next week, unlock the box, and you keep the key, and you keep the box, and you keep the records, and maybe you have 2 locks, and you'll keep the key, and then we'll open it up, count the money. This is just the same. Oh, there's some missing here. What happened? Deal with the problem. Go on with your transactions. But we do this. Now here's how we do PowerPoints in the field. Our PowerPoint animation. Okay, here's a group. Remember that little circle? Here's the circle. Here's a loan fund here. You see, right there's little seeds, there's a pile of seeds. And here, this little pile of seeds here is a loan going out to somebody to buy a couple of goats or to buy some salt or something like that. So this is a training, and then we came in first and we had big pieces of paper and put it down, and the women said, "Oh, we can't understand that. We're illiterate." And then we said, "Oh, okay, we draw that. Now, okay, you draw that. Now, all right. Now, Laura, you draw that picture." And then they'd start drawing it, and then they start explaining it to each other. And you get yourself out of the picture as quickly as possible. Get out, make it happen. Get out, disappear as quickly as possible. That's the motto here. Standardization, low cost, local control. Careful partner selection. You're dead if you choose the wrong partner. You got to go out there, assess. Do they have outreach? Are they seen as honorable organizations? Do they have good outreach? What are the promoters or the animators actually learned? How solid an organization? And then we jointly decide on who the manager is. If you've got the wrong manager in the wrong organization, you're dead. You've completely thrown your money away. The right organization with the right manager will hire the right staff. With the right training, will make this happen. If any one of those things goes wrong, if you got the wrong organization, the wrong manager, no matter what you do, you can't make any progress. Comprehensive documentation, close monitoring and supervision, which we provide. Comprehensive documentation. We're trying to learn this because, well, so we reach 1 million people. So we reach 5 million people. So we've done this, but what's the potential demand? 500 million. So what we do has to be the seed. We're telling the story. We've got to tell the story. We've got to document it. We have to show all the statistics to all of the most anal compulsive researcher types that are wanting to poke holes in everything. We've got to be able to tell the story, to advocate it, so that this can be a model which truly becomes transformative on a gigantic scale. Because if we do 1 or 2, that's 1/5 of 1%. But if what we do can encourage many, many other organizations to do the same thing, then we've actually had some impact that is enough to be significant. Okay, so here we are. Business as usual, right under your feet. There it is, transactions occurring. This is built on the fact that Oxfam works with hundreds of partners. Not one of them will be the next Grameen. Not one of them will be the next ASA. But they are organizations that have good outreach. So we have to actually develop a methodology that they can actually do. And they can't do traditional microfinance because after 25 years of doing this, and even be foolish enough to do it myself for 10 years, a god-awful experience of managing a loan fund and collecting on loans, that's a horrible job. So here we are. Timbuktu, you've heard of Timbuktu? Timbuktu, you remember? Here it is in Mali. Here we're in this year, first year, second year, third year. We're expanding out within this area. Here's this is one of the poorest countries on the face of the earth. 171st out of 177 countries as far as poverty, malaria, and all the other statistics as you can see there. Okay, so now let's get into some pictures. Business. These women make brooms up in the villages, come by and sell them in the market. So here's the broom business. Booming broom business. Here's our erstwhile staff. These are the animators. These are the people we trained, and they're out there. Each one gets a motorcycle. Here's your 30 villages, work for them, and they going out, solving the program, getting the word out. They've got 3 years to completely saturate this area, to put in place a virally expanding process so that they can get out, and all we do is stand back and monitor what happens so we can actually learn what happened.
Yeah.
Yes?
Do they have a stakeholding in terms of, as it gets sustainable, that they have a continuing benefit, or are they
No.
it's just as a...
It's not sustainable. This model is totally unsustainable, and that the initial cost of about $10 per is a grant. So it's not like microfinance. There's no share of the interest. You're solving the program, getting it out of the way, and there's no. But so the idea is to drive the cost down and increase the self-replication process to keep the cost low.
But the question would be about partner selection, since it's so vital.
Yeah.
Is there any reward or downside?
Yes, there's a tremendous reward. If you really do well, we can expand the staff. And if you do really great, well, you worked in those 300 villages, pretty good. Now you can go to the next set. So that's the incentive. Don't do well, out. Sorry, but you got, if you can't cut it, you just don't, go forward.
And Jeff, just,
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that there was an increase in status. Can you talk about that a little bit? I mean,
Well,
that is a benefit.
but I'll actually show you just in a couple. But this is an example. This is the best animator that we had, Fatoumata Traoré, and now she is. So what we're doing is, among the best managers and the best animators, we're promoting them up to be the trainers. This is our backward dance, so that we don't have to do it. We don't have to. Our role keeps pulling back. So we identify them. Now they're the Oxfam consultants. They're training, and then we supervise them. So we're developing capacity. There's an upward mobility there. So those who do well can see. And then, great, these two people disappear, so others can move up into their slots. So there's upward mobility to do well through this mechanism. Okay, here we are coming in, calling the meeting. Here comes the microfinance institution right there. And here we are doing the transactions, which you've seen. Now here we start the interesting story about the status. Now this woman here, and I just took these pictures in May, so I was just there. This woman has returned, she's the second wife, and her kids are a little bit older, so she has a little more flexibility to move. She's gone from her husband's village and gone back to her birth village. And she says, God, I'm doing this really great thing called this savings and lending group. And so they all say, that sounds really great. Teach us how to do that. So here she is returning to her village. She's network weaving. She's weaving, oh, thank you, weaving away like mad, and she's doing it. So she's going at it. Okay, now this woman is an interesting story. This woman is a Bambara speaking. She was in the market selling spices, and she runs into these Fulani women. The Fulanis are the herders of Africa. And so they're selling milk, and she's selling condiments in the market. And she tells about this wonderful group she's in. And so she says, teach us how to do it. So here she is. She's a Bambara speaker teaching the Fulanis. And here are the Fulanis. Here they are. I love this picture. Here are the Fulani women. They're all running after, they're really strong, collecting their savings. Now this is the third model of network weaving. Now this woman says, this woman's educated. She has an 8th grade education. She says, hey, you know, instead of selling tomatoes, why don't I sell group training services? So she and her friend are out there making a business of selling group training services. So she's out there as a consultant, making a little bit of money, maybe a couple chickens and other things, and she's making a living doing that instead of selling tomatoes. Now if we can get those women together and create an army of these, you see, they would spread virally, no cost, totally self-financed, and off it goes. All we have to do is steady it and tell the story. Much more interesting, because I always want to be an anthropologist anyway, instead of being a project manager. So here we are, doing the transactions. And now here's another interesting story. So the women come together, they're going to skit. So they dress up like men, they're the village elders. These are all women here. And here they are drinking up all the money, having a great old time. And then look what happens. Then the police say, okay, it's time to pay your taxes. And they say, Jesus, we drank up all our money, we don't have any money. And these women come in here and say, hey, look, we've got money, we're organized, we can give you a loan at a high interest rate. And everybody's happy, and off they go, dancing around. And there'll be an awful lot of dancing. And I want to just conclude. And they even got this guy playing the balafon, which is a primitive ancestor of all the marimbas and everything, which came from Mali. And he's dressed in a woman's outfit, interesting enough, that says International Day of Women on it. Well, these little yellow things. So on it goes. So these we're finding a lot of changes. I don't have too much time to go into all of this, but I want to show you a table that summarizes it. Why do they like this? Look at learning about malaria prevention and control. Number 1. Number 2, support in case of emergencies. I'm really poor, I've got no money, so if my kids get sick, I can turn to the group and they give me a loan or they might help me out. Number 3, savings. Number 4, solidarity. We're together, we can do things together, we can help each other. This one here, we can get loans. And interesting enough, the poorest like having somebody to turn to in case of assistance, and the better off like the loans, because they're more business oriented. So you're building social capital, you're building financial services, and you're building solidarity all at the same time. So these are our projections for what we hope to achieve, reaching scads of people, and the last thing, everybody's always dancing. So here we are, dancing away. The marimba is going at full speed there. The guys, remember those kids we saw initially? They're practicing to be these guys dressed up, and the dancers like this, because when they get bigger, those guys, the little boys with the sacks on their head are going to be these guys. And the women are dancing with their incredibly elegant outfits. And the kids are out there. And my favorite group portrait here. Here are all the kids out there who are doing their dancing. And this is what we want to do, expand, get to hundreds of thousands. We advocate for the new model for other Oxfam's World Bank aid. And maybe if Gates gives us scads of money, we can do this on a huge scale, convene all sorts of conferences, write all sorts of books and papers, advocate for this model, transform rural development, and that will be entertaining. There's some costs about it. Basically, every $1 million, it's about 70,000 families, 800 or 900 villages. improve income, social capital, and knowledge. It's a great process. So, and here he is practicing to be the, doing his moves here. Okay, so good, I'll stop. So now, do we have any time for questions?
We've got lunch in 15 minutes right next door.
Okay, so we have
And so
10 minutes.
you two can go out and
Yes.
if you want to stay.
Okay, okay, so if any questions, because I know there's a bunch of questions, and so Francis, we'll start with.
Oh, I'm curious about, does this create other, I was talking to you earlier about what I was learning about in Senegal, where there was a microcredit or nanocredit element, but that the women, once coming together, they were taking on a range of things, including female genital cutting and all sorts of issues of alcohol, just all sorts of social improvement questions.
Yes.
And so, yes.
Well, they are. They're starting the first line is more immediate things. They're drilling. The associations are interested in well drilling, a little mill to keep from not have to pound all the grain by hand, and also buying grain when it's cheap, and then be able to sell it when it's expensive. Make some money doing that, and also provide cheaper food for themselves in the hungry season. But this is sequential. This might be 2 years down the line, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. Push in a little bit, as little as possible, and go from there. Okay, sure.
Well, first, how many countries have used the model?
Well, this particular one, it's our big projects are Cambodia and Mali. We're just starting up in Senegal. But this is actually based on the work of the Women's Empowerment Program in Nepal. Huge amounts of work done in India. CARES projects in Zimbabwe and Niger and a lot of other places. So I visited all these. It's called the sponge model of development. Suck up an idea, squirt it out. Suck it up, squirt it out. Suck it out, squirt it out. That's what we do. So I'm sucking up all these ideas together and mixing them together. And then we're coming up with this new model, which we have the hope or the pretense of being better than the others, but who knows? And who's counting? Yes. So, sure.
Sorry, just to follow up on that, because...
Well, so millions of people have been reached through this kind of approach.
Right.
And these have up to 15, 20 years of history. But our particular history is about 1.5 years. Actual operations.
I don't know if you can speak to this, but among different cultures, have you run into any sort of tensions where you kind of hit roadblocks? I know just from my time in Sri Lanka, there was kind of a community no about actually elevating yourself. People would actually, some of the more elite people in
Sure.
the community would get mad and kind of try to suppress.
Of course.
So are there ways, do you just keep trying until you
Yeah.
find a group that really accepts it? And then
It really works.
Right?
But I remember being in, was it Sri Lanka I was in? I was in Thailand, actually, for similar phenomena. But it's really what depends on what group you work with. Every culture, every village is a complete, has different advantage and disadvantage. Generally, we found in the West African context that the village elders are very supportive of this. Well, let's say about 70%, 80% are supportive. The other 20% of the guys can't handle it, and they pull the women out of the groups. But, what are you going to expect? Yes, sure. Yeah, Martha.
How did you find and train the animators?
Well, it's a whole, we can talk about that. We have a whole curriculum. It's an all super participatory process where basically they go through the process of creating the groups, then they go practice it in the field of creating the groups, and then they learn constantly through retraining, refresher training, reflection exercises, all of that, so they keep going up. But it's an extremely participatory process.
And it looked like it was about half men and half women.
In that particular, yeah. We have a hard time finding enough women, educated women, to do this. But I think we pitched the education level too high. We had to do this training in French, but in next generation we can do the training in Bambara, pick up other educated people who speak the local language. That, of course, we've become totally irrelevant because, of course, I speak Spanish, can work too. That's too great. But other trainers speak French, but Bambara, you got to do it with local people because nobody will understand what's going on. Sure.
In terms of choosing communities, have you created something that would stir up interest in being chosen to be one of your affiliated communities?
Yes.
Instead of having a sort of top-down, we'll decide to do it.
Oh no, well it's very bottom-up actually. What you do is, excuse me, You go to all the communities. Okay, you're a brand new animator, right? You've got 30 villages you're responsible for. We don't want you to do any group formation the first month. All we want you to do is visit all the villages. Get to know them. We don't want all the villages you chose initially to be in the bottom, one little corner, one that's spread all the way out. And so you just go there and see where the receptivity and interest is, and you choose that. So it's completely driven by the local communities. You go where, my idea of development is you go where the light is. So you don't go where the dark is, and you start with the light. The light is hard enough to do. Anything else? Okay. Yes, Tom.
Do you have any idea on how you might increase
Excuse
your
me.
spontaneous replication
Oh, yeah.
through network technology, realizing they don't have electricity, but could an animator take something from an internet cafe out to the field in a boombox or whatever?
Yeah, no, we could do, well, one thing is we're putting this on the radio.
Yeah.
So the radio is good. So the radio is good. And then
You say radio, do you mean point-to-point radio or broadcast radio?
broadcast radio. So the people are being interviewed, and a lot of people, there's a lot of radios out there, so they're listening to people talking about their experience, and this really spreads the idea. So radio is good. We can also do, now just for the specifics, the non-technology part of it, so you get the animators, first of all, we simplified the methodology with the oral record keeping system. We have a pictographic manual that goes through all the steps with no words. Develop all these tools specifically for use. And then bringing the replicators together. Learn from each other. Just learn. Here, all we do is provide you with something to eat, maybe, and just learn from each other. Learn and go back and come back together. Just keep networking. But I think we can, there's a few nearby villages, there's cell phone coverage. The towers kind of go out that far, and there's a few cell phones around. So there might be ways of linking that way, or there could be ways of doing tape recordings and playing them in the village, kind of like, and with a discussion around it. So I think we can do some techniques if we're a little bit creative. I think we're going to go that way.
And one other question, how is Savings-led Microfinance received by the debt-based microfinance establishment?
Well, I mean, like everything I've been in my life, and my entire life has been when the 6-lane freeway is going one way, I'm out, just sort of hatching. It's a little, going out and trying to blaze a trail in the other direction. So it's been totally ignored, first of all, looked at, and then contempt, and then incredible suspicion, and now sort of a grudging acceptance that this may be violent, and how do we get into the game? So, there's progress. Particularly because I see this is a technique of being able to expand their outreach. If we do all the work of forming the groups and are all trained, then they can just drop the credit, and then all the money gets sucked out of the village back into the MFI. It's more complicated than that, but those who want to go into the arcane details of that, I can talk about it later. So it's fun stuff. So I'd like to, since we're out of time? Yeah, fine. So cool. But I want to share the concept. This concept we developed in the Campesino Leadership Program, and so we're bringing all these leaders together in this Casa de Hacienda and talking revolution into the night. But they were talking. We were just asking them questions, and they would do a socio-drama where they would, like half of them would be the oppressors beating on the peasants and the sharecroppers, but we came with the concept as a crucible, and I think that's really all what networkers are doing is a crucible. So you take a lot of disparate energy points, and you bring them back, keep concentrating them together, and the communication keeps going faster and faster and faster until change occurs. It's just like a nuclear reaction. So after we gave the training, even back in those days, the trained people would disappear with their agrarian reform laws in their hands into the villages organizing at night and coming back for discussion during the day. So that process really got underway. So that's all we're doing. No great ideas from the outside, getting people together. Everybody knows the solution to every problem. Just ask a few questions. And it's so simple. Well, what would you like to see? What would that look like? How you doing? Okay, how would you get to there? Oh, And so what are you going to do? Hey, it looks good. Yeah. Well, what did you do? I did that. Did it work? Yeah. What could be better? Oh, that's it. It's as simple as that. It's the bare bones appreciative inquiry approach to work. And just in conclusion, I'd like to, my best friend is a poet, and he and I wandered through the Amazonian jungles for months, and he was writing poetry, and I was doing arcane things like the process of spontaneous colonization in the upper headwaters of the Amazon. He was writing beautiful poetry and rhapsodizing about generally the local women. So he wrote some haikus back, and I wrote one. I said, trying to change the world, he found it more difficult than expected. So, and if you want to continue this conversation, can do so. I guess we're out of time. Yeah. Thank you.